They want you to be perfect, Vera. It's a good thing you are.
Hey guys, my name is Mushroom, Shroomy, Shrooms, Mush. I have a lot of different names and I just really like lore. So this week we got Domina's short story, and while it doesn't have anything really moving the plot forward or the narrative, it is an excellent character breakdown of Domina herself, or Vyra Singahani. So let's break it down and really get to talking about Domina. Also, I'll be discussing the current state of Vishkar with Sym and Weaver and more, because there is a lot more that kind of goes in hand with all of that, and also it just adds a little bit more for us to talk about aside from Domina's character. As per usual, don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps the channel and lets you guys know when more content is coming. So let's get into the new short story, The Picture of Success. The story begins with Domina alone, preparing for a Vishkar award ceremony for the architects who work in Vishkar. She's given her speech early, and, upon reading it, disagrees with a lot of what was prepared. The script focuses on her connections to her family, specifically her connections to the original founder of Vishkar. Domina disagrees with the importance of that, saying it may distance and belittle her own achievements. So, she decides to create her own script, one focused on herself, and we learn about how the architects seem to have been flourishing under her rule, and that much of her upbringing was told and made to be perfect for Vishkar. While she may not be as gifted with Hardlight, she sees her skill in negotiation, dealings, and much more even more valuable in some ways. In the present, she understands what her parents forced her to do, and forced her to be, but doesn't really show disappointment. Instead, she shows pride, and focuses on how she can lead Vishkar to the future. That one was a pretty quick summary. Once again, as per usual, highly recommend going and reading this short story for yourself. There's a lot of really interesting things with Domina as a character, and just a really good character breakdown and study. There isn't really anything with the overarching Vishkar plot in this. I wasn't really expecting a lot with that, but I do have some interesting things I do want to talk about that this story kind of brings up, or I should say, what it doesn't bring up kind of opens up a lot of avenues. But before that, Domina's character was something that a lot of people have been already sold on, but I'm even more sold on her now. This story shows a lot of insecurity in Domina that we haven't really seen before, such as her need to be perfect. This was something we all kind of assumed, but a lot of the interactions in-game didn't really paint this in the best way. But now that we see her own perspective on herself, it does open up a lot and explain why she has to be perfect, and why she carries herself so pridefully, because she does see herself as amazing. Her family as well, kind of putting her in the position to be the perfect Vishkar heir, is interesting, but kind of something we already knew. I do think there's a really cool moment in this story that explains that when she was a child, she did do hard-like tech, and she did kind of create stuff with it, but it was very improper, and her parents, in turn, really disagreed with it, and actually were ashamed of her in that regard. So she tried to do tutoring and teaching to try to learn how to do hard-like correctly, and it took a long time, and she's definitely not a prodigy at it, but she's a prodigy in other ways. That shows her difference between a character like Symmetra. With Symmetra, she really is the exact inverse of Domina, where Symmetra is more focused on fixing Vishkar, but also came from a poor upbringing and was gifted, and Domina herself is from a rich family, and kind of was put in this position and didn't necessarily want it, but is here now, and not gifted with Hardlight, but she is gifted with talking. So she uses that to her strength. Domina as well in this is kind of bringing up an interesting thing with the architects. So the architects, if you don't know, are characters like Symmetra and what Lifeweaver used to be when they were studying at the academy. In Vishkar, they do have an academy that teaches people from a young age how to use Hardlight so they can be sent out into the world to do whatever Vishkar needs. It sounds like while Domina didn't attend the academy, she did private tutoring and has enough of a grasp on it to really understand it, but also to the point of kind of teaching other people how to run the academy properly. I think something important here is run the academy properly, because she's definitely not in it or involved with it really, just kind of making it flourish, and when it does benefit her, she kind of prides herself on it, and we see in this, she even mentions how it's doing great, and she loves how it's doing. The architects are another thing that we've known about for a long time, but we don't really know a lot about them besides that. I do wonder if that area that's being built in Thames District, which if you don't know, in the skybox you can see some Vishkar buildings being built, that's probably going to be another academy that they're setting up. You can see it in Lifeweaver's origin story. We believe that's what an academy looks like. So with that in mind, this does look like they're expanding. So maybe this is what she's talking about when she says that the academics and the architects are flourishing. Because this does seem like the one part of Vishkar that's really doing good in the present day, and really benefiting everything going on. Aside from that, though, her skills at negotiation are something that have been brought up before, once again, with, of course, Vendetta, but I'm interested to see what else she's exactly done. She talks about how she's opened up the doors to a lot of really, really important dealings and really beneficial things, so I want to see a bit more of that. I want to see, like, what other kind of deals that she's done with Vishkar. There's a really fun moment in Maximilian's story where they talk about the Axiom stock market crash or something, and while that's like a throwaway thing, I do hope we get kind of that thing with Domina, just to kind of get like a bit of a world-building perspective on things. This character kind of came out of nowhere and seems like a really big deal, so I would love some more of that stuff. Aside from that, though, her childhood is something I want to talk about for a bit. It's really interesting, and how I mentioned the dynamic and differences with Symmetra, but also the differences with Lifeweaver. Lifeweaver came from a really rich family as well, and wanted him to be an architect, but he didn't really agree with how his parents were doing things, with the difference here being Domina kind of gave in and accepted her role. He kind of stepped away after finding what he really wanted to do, which is a really interesting thing that they're probably going to be exploring more in-game. With Domina in the group now, we do really have the three major areas in Vishkar. The one who stayed, the one who's staying to try to fix it, and of course, the one who left. This little trio is a group I really want to see explored more, especially. I want to see Domina and Symmetra talk. They talk non-canonically in interactions, of course, but I do want to see them just kind of talk more in general. It's really cool to kind of get that character expanded on here and really focus on her a bit more and just kind of explain why she kind of holds herself like this. Like I mentioned earlier, her parents were kind of ashamed at her at first, and she kind of had to build herself up to be this perfect image. She's the granddaughter of the founder, so one of her parents is related to the founder in some way, like as a daughter or son. There is a really interesting thing that was pointed out to me too about the Vishkar Award. So the Vishkar Award itself is called the Vishkar Award for Excellence in Reimagining Architectural Applications. It does kind of sound like her name Varia, of course with a little extra added, so it could be a really cool coincidence or just kind of shows how deep this family connection to Vishkar really goes. Maybe her parents kind of named her after this, wanting her to be this person, or in turn, maybe she named the award after herself. It's not really for sure on either of those, but I thought I'd bring it up as a fun little thing to really show her deeper connection to the company. So another thing I want to talk about with Vishkar is of course Thames District. If you don't know, the Stadium Map Thames District was a teaser for Domina this entire time. A lot of us thought it was other characters like cough cough, I wonder, maybe cough cough, case cough cough. Seriously though, this was a teaser for Domina, this entire map. You can see the Vishkar stuff like I mentioned earlier in the skybox. So this is something that was in the background of the other story that she was with Vendetta. In that one, they kind of talk about London calling, which was a pretty crazy thing. And Domina even talks about how they need a good PR move. So maybe Symmetra being at the Arcology, like I mentioned a bit earlier, could be that PR move and could be showing that they're trying to fix things. But as well, it does show that Lucio's father's tech, the kind of sound-based stuff, was used and confirmed to be used by Vishkar in London Calling. That was the thing that led to Lady's death in London Calling, if you don't know, which was kind of like a big moment in that comic. But it is really interesting to see how I'm assuming Domina has incorporated Lucio's father's technology into Vishkar fully, and they're weaponizing it. It does show that Vishkar is expanding, and they've expanded all the way to King's Row. This shows also with the Academy there that they are going to be setting up shop at least in another major city across the globe, which is kind of crazy to think about. Vishkar's already pretty global, but being put in King's Row could lead to a lot of interesting story avenues that I want to talk about real quick. So there are a bunch of characters that we know of from London Calling that are in King's Row that I think could make really good foils to Domina. Of course, I could talk about Case, but I'll talk about Iggy first. So if you don't know, Iggy is Tracer's either best friend or closest friend, and they live in King's Row and are currently the leader of the Omnics living in the underworld. I think Iggy could be a really strong character to have as a foil to Domina and the expansion of Vishkar. Maybe we could get her as a hero, and she could kind of be our perspective on everything going on back home while Tracer's out fighting in the world. Iggy's kind of a freedom fighter, and obviously Lady was one of her close friends, so seeing Domina kind of using what happened to Lady from London Calling and weaponizing it in a sense would probably not make her very happy. So I want to see what she has to say on everything with Vishkar, and she would probably be starchly opposed to Vishkar expanding into London more. But the other major character they could do stuff with is, of course, Case. If you don't know who Case is, I don't know how you don't know, I talk about him all the time, but Case is the villain of London Calling. He's implied to be a member of Null Sector, but we've never seen him since. Case is a character that they could really do anything with, but his main goal in London Calling was to destroy humans and kind of let Omnix live free. But he wasn't afraid to hurt Omnix in the process. So I could see him weaponizing what's going on in Thames District and with Domina to kind of foil and create another secondary villain going on there, and Domina could kind of use him as a PR move, and he could use her as a PR move in that sense. I think that could be another really cool avenue they go if they want to make Case an extended character or maybe even a hero, but I think Iggy or Case would be really cool to see interact with Domina a lot more. London Calling just needs one hero on the roster, I think, to make it really stand out, but Domina's whole character here does show what's going on in Thames District as probably something that she's benefiting from and is very proud of. The expansion into London is a pretty big deal in the world, and kind of shows Vishkar's definitely not done, even if their PR is kind of gone right now. So I'm really wondering what's going on over there and how people feel about her there. In general, Domina's a really complex character that I'm probably not even doing justice by saying it out loud like this. Really, you guys should go read the story to see what I mean. The artwork in it is also amazing, and it really sells how she's feeling about herself and the situation she's in. Now, aside from Domina, let's talk about Symmetra and Lifeweaver for a bit, because they do have fun interactions with Domina in-game, but their stuff is focusing on kind of expanding the main plot. So, if you guys don't know, the current status of Symmetra and Lifeweaver is kind of weird. So, the last time we heard about Symmetra was when she visited the Arcology. And if you don't know what the Arcology is, that's where Lifeweaver's staying right now. It's a place where a lot of scientists meet and they kind of create technology free of any government. Here, Symmetra went to go visit Lifeweaver to try to get him to give Vishkar his technology that they've been after. Of course, Lifeweaver says no, and because of that, Symmetra's meeting with him kind of gets abruptly messed up because of Null Sector invading, but that's besides the point. After their meeting, Lifeweaver tells Symmetra if she really wants to fix Vishkar or find out what's going on with it, she needs to investigate the founder of Vishkar himself. So, the thing about the founder, this is also a thing that's in Overwatch Declassified. The founder died in a mysterious car crash that it's kind of implied in the book itself was staged in some way, somebody wanted him to die. And we can assume it was the conspiracy because that's what we all want to point towards. I, for a while, thought it could have been maybe Domina was involved with it in some way, but of course, the age doesn't match up, so maybe her parents were involved with it, or something like that. The founder's death is the ongoing mystery in Vishkar, and what exactly happened to him, no one really knows. Lifeweaver might know a little bit more than he's letting on, but that's kind of all we know. That's where we left the two off, but I should also mention the last canonical time we actually saw them was in Reconciliation, which is kind of weird because Symmetra was leaving the Arcology last time we saw her, but here we see her, Lifeweaver, and Zenyatta all talking at the Arcology or helping Omnix. This is something that is kind of interesting. I don't know where this kind of fits timeline-wise because I don't know when this happened, but that is something that happened as well. So, all in all, the Vishkar storyline is kind of at a weird point where we're waiting on Symmetra's move next. Maybe Domina's kind of the key to kind of figuring out where things go from here, and maybe they can use that character to really expand on everything and kind of morph it into an ongoing, more connected storyline in the future. And of course, with all of that in mind, what exactly happened to the founder? Well, I have a couple ideas, but mainly I want to talk about maybe the conspiracy or maybe something else that I came up with after reading Domina's story. So of course, the conspiracy, I'll say again, for those who don't know, the conspiracy is the I group that was in Sombra's original animated origin story, and they're kind of responsible for a lot of the background stuff that happens in the world. Nobody really knows why they do what they do. They're the ones who destroyed the Overwatch headquarters, but they also are implied to have been the downfall of Yari's people, the Inti Warriors. So with all of that, the conspiracy makes sense to be the villain here. But I do want to play with the idea of another person being involved. So, a big character that's kind of been absent from everything so far with Vishkar, and someone I realized in this story has been missing, is, of course, the president. Domina is the vice president of Vishkar, so who exactly is in charge? Well, we don't really know at the moment, aside from the fact that there is a president. Vishkar's kind of been shrouded in a bit of not secrecy, but we just haven't gotten a lot of world building on them. So Domina being the vice president brings up what is the role of the president gonna be. I think there's a really good chance the president is probably involved in whatever happened with the original founder. Maybe they helped lead to the person's death, or maybe they kind of benefited from it and set it all up. This is a character we literally know nothing about, except I'm assuming the president exists because we have a vice president. So this is probably a character we're going to be seeing in the future with Domina's story, if I had to guess. So, aside from the conspiracy and the president of Vishkar, we really don't know who led to the founder's death. There's a million ways this story could go, and I am kind of interested to see what happens, especially once Symmetra finds out the truth. What's she gonna do? Symmetra's whole character so far has really been to help Vishkar and try to fix it from the inside out. So when she finds out what happened, what's gonna happen with the founder? I do think a lot of this stuff is kind of hinging on this moment, and a lot of things are going to get rolling once Symmetra gets that final little kick and gets that storyline moving forward. But in general as well, this was just kind of an update on Vishkar and talking about Domina's character here. Anyways, that's all from me in this one. I want to hear what you guys have to think. Are you excited to hear more about what happened to Vishkar's founder? How do you feel about Domina, and Vendetta for that matter? I think the two really bounce off each other in a really fun and interesting way. I think Lifeweaver and Symmetra can get a little bit more here, but also Lucio. I really want to see what Lucio kind of does when these two characters eventually meet. Anyways, that's all from me. That's all I really got for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed, and as always, don't forget to like and subscribe, and leave a comment. I love reading everyone's comments. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye!